Hi. Megan Bedford here with Awaken to Your Freedom. And today I have a very special guest, one of my teachers and friends and soul sisters, Lauri Ivers. She's joining us from Live with Lauri, which we'll get into in a little bit. But Lauri, you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm Lauri Ivers, intuitive guide, transformational teacher, and speaker, and I teach consciousness. And what that means is your connectivity to more and your knowing of who you are beyond what you've known yourself to be. And that's where you become free. And that's why I'm glad to be aligned with Meg, because her platform, Awaken to Your Freedom, is an outlet where beings like me have a voice to share with you more. So thanks so much, Meg. I'm glad to be on the show with you.
Yeah, so Lauri does this really great broadcast every Wednesday called Live with Lauri. And basically, anyone can hop on that call. It's at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I kind of host it with her, and anyone can ask any question about anything that's going on in their life, in the world, with their pet. I actually had a pet question this morning. And if you can't make the show, that's great too, because you can send in an email to Lauri and we have all the information below this video. And we'll kind of get into kind of how she does this. But also, if you want a private session with Lauri, you can go onto her website, which is below too, and sign up for a private session with her. So I'm excited to have her on here. We connected in a very serendipitous way, like most of us do these days. And first, let's go back to the like very basics, Laura, and just talk about what it means to be an intuitive. Let's just take it
Well,
to
I love
the
that
basics.
you bring that up. So, intuitive gets a lot of misnomer. Everybody's intuitive and everybody does exactly what you and I expand upon. We're not doing anything that people aren't doing, they're just not qualifying it as a natural part of beingness, as well as like brushing your teeth, right? Most people do that, right? So, for us, those feelings that we have when we're like in a room and we can feel how people feel, we tend to ignore those and go with the story of what that is instead of just feeling what's really going on, because we'll qualify it to what we think should be going on.
Right.
So for me, being intuitive is being aware and not changing what's going on around you, but being really clear about your response to it, and then getting clear about the way you have power to see things. And that's really what we teach in transformation, in my practice, is really giving you back all of you, all of your potentials, all of your future moments from this now moment being seen in a different light. So many years, Spirit says, have been spent in exploring how we are, meaning like how we've been abundant, resonating expression, right? We've
Yeah.
all been, we're here holding eternal radiant expression. So we're all of the same source, abundant material expression, right? We're all form, so it seems. Consciousness and science will tell you that that's a lie. It limits infinite expression because they have found out that things are quantum and not quantified, I guess is the way to say it. So when you start to feel like things are not like they should be, I think most people feel that way, don't you, Meg? And I would call that being intuitive, knowing that something's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it.
Right. So let's go a little bit step further with that intuition, because we all have a really strong intuition. Sometimes I feel like we have a hard time accessing it, what's real
Or not
kind of.
denying it, or we
Right.
have
Yes.
trouble not denying it.
Yes. So but let's take, so that's ourselves, right? So that's like knowing ourselves and understanding kind of our intuition. But let's talk about your gift, which is magical. And so when somebody asks you a question about something that's going on in their life, tell the audience kind of what happens, like for you.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate that question. Well, what has happened since I've allowed myself to be attuned to what is available to everybody? Because I'm always going to share at that level. that what I'm able to receive is a unique capacity, but at some level, every capacity that we ever see is attainable by everybody. And I always want to keep it as oneness and equitable and attainable. And that doesn't mean that you're going to choose that or it's even your road. But I'd like to always be infinite in all aspects. So in my gift, what we do is we know you. We know really what you came to evolve. It's like going to a library, pulling out a file and reading your chart. Everybody has a birth chart. If you know about some spiritual practices or astronomy or astrology, you'll know that we all have sequences and numbers and numerology and henceforth many articles of information to follow as people have for eons now, right? And so those are accumulated in what might be called a record. And one would call it the Akashic, which just means life stream or experience.
Yep.
And so what we do is just pull your record and give you insight about where you are on the current potentials of the infinite choices that you thought you'd explore.
So when you say we, who are you referring to, Lauri?
Well, in truth, the highest level of everything is no one and no thing. That's why the Buddha is very at peace, because he's not having an argument with himself. Get it?
Oh, Lauri cracks herself up. Yes, so you know.
So that's the highest one, when nothing's going on and all's well, right?
Yeah.
And then you have evolutionary points of exploratory challenges that give you the opportunity to gain wisdom from the clarity of the difference. And that's really what the earth plane has given many souls the opportunity to do, is to really embody illusion as though it's reality, and then realize that they've been sleepwalking in a hazy dream of potentials and really could have any potential but choose to stay in the dream. Yeah. So we call Awaken to Your Freedom that literally waking up from sleepwalking in a livelihood that's really just a bunch of characters that got here now on this stage. And they all seem to have one name called your name, but they are full of different ideas, and there are many people's ideas of one nature or another. Get it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So somebody asked you a question, okay? And usually a question comes up for many of us because it's something that we're kind of mulling over, right? On a decision that we're trying to make.
Thank you for that word.
Yeah. And a lot of the times I would say we know the answer, right? Like we know, and maybe.
Oh, I really, really love this question. Thank you so much for this question. It's brilliant. And I'll see why it's brilliant. There are a lot of different levels. They'd like to take this one particular question, if you'll allow us, many directions, they say.
Okay.
We always like to start at the highest level, so I'll just let them say what they say. And the highest level from your question, and if you'll just repeat it, I have the essence of it, but repeat the vernacular for me.
So I was saying we're mulling something over, like a decision.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So the highest potential of what you're talking about is absolutely wasting this precious now moment.
Right.
Mulling everything over is battling with that voice in your head that's talking about the past.
Right.
The unknown present potential, because you're looking somewhere else. And then even if you're in the future, you're still here. So you won't be there until you're here again. Right. So mulling is wasteful, as well as ruminating over hatred. That's another form of mulling we'd like to bring attention to. Any form of expression where your focus is where you're putting your gas. So you're the car, right? And what you feel about what you put into the car is how fast it goes or not, right? Right. So if you feel like you run on molasses and sludge because you label yourself in the culture of your fast food world as wrong, instead of just convenient and accessible and abundant, which is true either way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's really your demeanor with yourself that expresses who you are. The world itself is illusionary form of collected mirrors that you agree to, called a holographic projection. Consciousness will tell you that if you study science a little.
We have somebody coming in.
Oh, good. Yay. Hello.
So I was going to ask you also, when you're working with somebody, what's kind of, can you talk, let's say you're not just answering one question, right? But you're actually working with a client on a regular basis. Can you kind of walk me through what that,
I'd love to.
yeah,
Well,
what that looks like? Like, what is the type of client that you even like to work with? And what are some of the things that you discuss with this client?
that's really great. My heart likes to work with everybody, which means I work with all answers and all levels, but my preference is to work with beings who are ready to really take their freedom in hand, who
Yeah.
really want to see me trip on the word want. It's not a word of choice. It's a word of a little fear from my face, because my desire is many desire freedom.
Right.
So that's my wanting. And you see how aware I am about my consciousness, that I heard that need from myself and I recognized it. Even as a schooled authoritarian who's channeling all this, I can hear my own consciousness.
Yeah.
In the midst of that brilliant wisdom, I could hear Lauri Ivers miss a beat. Do you understand? That's clarity. That's what we teach. We teach you that kind of clarity where you're selling yourself out to a character who really brought you here today to have this conversation called consciousness.
Yeah. So let me just give them an example even on how that worked for me, because I got introduced to Lauri through a friend, and I was kind of coming up against, I've been on this awakening path for about 10 years, but I've been coming up against kind of those old conditioning, obligations, right? That we have here, like certain careers that I inherited, just success, like these things that were ingrained in my brain over the years, and looking, really knowing intuitively that I was ready to let those go, but the clarity is what I needed. And so very quickly, what I love about working with Lauri is it's a no bullshit relationship. It's very unfiltered. When I'm asking a question, it usually comes out very direct. And sometimes, sometimes you are ready to hear the information, but sometimes you're hearing something that but you don't want to know, right? Because you don't feel like you're ready to make that change, even though you are.
I really love said that, because I've been encountering beings as we've traveled, and we're really enjoying everyone we're meeting, and we're really enjoying their version of them. Do you hear what I say? Their version of them.
Yeah.
We know them beyond their version of them, but when we see them, we accept that that's what they're accepting. And that's a beautiful part of the picture that makes the whole world go round, called the show, right? All the world's a stage. When you start to recognize that the creator made a game called life, living, information, feeling, and forming, expression. That's all we are, is form, having expression, given consciousness that has the totality to be anything. But when we self-identify with many eons of culturalization, well, then we're a little stuck in the grind. But many of us are tired of carrying metal.
Yeah.
So we decided to be light again and get rid of carbon. Get it?
Yeah.
So when you start to enlighten, you just start to become aware of all the limitations that you have accepted. And you were asking before what it's like to work with me. Well, our first session is, hey, you're not who you think you are. Hey, I know who you are. Let me tell you something about you you don't know. And let me tell you,
I'm going to strip you naked today, Megan.
Right? And the beautiful thing about spirit and my trance channeling, because that's really what I do the minute I plug in. I'm chatty with you, but Lauri's half and half, right? She's here, but she's generally just plugged in with you. So what I find is it's not a separate being, like I'm somewhere else. You heard me catch myself. I'm right here in the conversation. I'm just allowing more of my whole self to show up to the party, which would be all of us.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I noticed right away, like the first minute I started talking to you, it was a very fast download coming from you. So, and without a lot of like pausing and stopping, a lot of information coming out. That was all very relevant. And what I found is by recording those sessions and being able to revisit them again, each time I revisited them, there was all these different nuggets of things like these
Well,
aha
you
moments.
don't each time you'd listened.
What's that?
Like I've gone back recently. I've been in practice for quite some time now. And I went back and heard a teacher, Patricia Robles, can't remember her whole Cortez something. You can find her out there. She's well known. She's been doing this work in transformation for 50 years or more. And she's fantastic. She's a great channel. She's a bit new agey because she is that channel, but she's also the connector to the bridge. Like she definitely is the wave before us, but us. And she's brilliant and definitely hooked up. And you have to follow her from your true knowing of no one to understand when she speaks of the company of heaven and the light beings, she's speaking of portrayals of other stages that are like the support staff that hold the curtain of the world. Yeah. So you still have to remember that you're not the entity, no matter whatever, be it an angel or otherwise. Does everybody get that? Yeah. You are ultimately the absolute everything. And you got the absolute potential of everything as that everything. So that's really the earth-shattering transcendence that's required for 5D expression, is that you know that everybody is everybody. That's the requirement, because when they say you can't take something with you, which means you can't take limiting infinite expression through false egoic identification, which means qualifying source.
I'm nodding my head yes, because that's exactly what happened. And I'm not saying that I showed up working with you without knowledge of the things, but what came forth in the last, almost 2 years now, this fall, was really this idea of really letting go. So over time, I would say a lot of these things started to, like the job I should have, the marriage I should have, all these ideas that I had coming here, in this lifetime, started to strip away. But by working with you, what happened is it almost became quicker, right? Because instead of taking the ego, right, which has the voice in the head, and then also my intuition, and constantly battling each other, right, which was happening, what happened is this sense of clarity. I mean, absolute clarity, because what you were tapping into completely was my higher self, which was my true essence, right? So what happened very quickly for me was decision making, whether it was a job or relationship stuff or parenting or really anything. And some of it's very basic that we talk about, and some of it is very big decisions, that I was kind of considering. And what happens very quickly is, like, with that clarity, what happens is the freedom that you're desiring in your life just becomes so much more. It's like you're able to have that so much faster because you're not battling the two. Does that make sense?
Right. Because you're not wasting your gas.
Yes. You're
using your focus to create your life in the next obvious easy step. I'll give you an example. Matthew, I'm going to give you 2 examples. Matthew's niece and I went for a little shop, which was so fun. And she's 11. So it was so fun. And she's the sweetest little thing. I just adored her to no end. And she was torn because she wants to be so grateful and not feel like she's taking. And I'm like, no, seriously, I'm really enjoying this. Please do it. So you see how that's already entrained in culture in lack.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want to have too much. And here I only want to just express, hey, this is fun. Let's do this. Right.
Yeah.
But I understand why that's happening. So she says, I don't really know which one I want. I said, well, this is the way you can decide no matter what from now on. I had her hold each thing in her hand. I had her shut her eyes, and I had her stop thinking and take a breath. And I said, which one do you want to hold the most? She instantly held up that one. I said, well, now you have your answer and you can put the other one away.
I love
So
it.
no battle, no muss, no fuss, no argument, straight up, there's your answer.
You just
So
brought
it's
up the
11
word, you
start
just
there.
brought up the word battle, and I have to talk about that because the battle, right, that happens sometimes consumes a lot of your time as a human
Oh,
here,
100.
right? So what has happened for me over, while working with you and after is all of a sudden that space that was being taken up, always always battling, is gone. Like it's not there anymore. So you have this freedom to actually be completely present in your life, which I didn't have before. And
And
it is
actually smell the flowers wherever you might be. We've been hiking and I've been able to see the beauty around me because I'm not in a hurry.
right.
I'm not worried about the next moment. And you will be fulfilled, because I want to talk about what it means to have a goal or a desire. A goal is effort oriented and proven driven, right? A goal is an outcome.
Right.
You're adjusting your value to an outcome. A desire means you'd like to feel a certain way. You're inspired by it, right?
Yep.
Of spirit, right? So a desire to share with as many people as possible this message of their greatness for their potential is certainly something that brings me joy, right? So
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer that I'd like to have more of that. So that's desire. But to effort to a goal, to get an outcome, to reach a certain amount of any kind, no matter what the qualification is a lie. It's disauthentic. And that is the greed structure. That is the issue at hand, is that we're not inspiring brilliance. We're in competition for brilliance when everybody has their own unique brilliance. And we'd like to shine a light on that brilliance because many have it and it's yet to be discovered.
I love that. One of the things that I think is unique too about you, Lauri, is that you've worked with a lot of business owners and a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, myself being one of them, but many, many on this earth. And I'd like you to just kind of talk about some of the ways that you've helped business owners. I can certainly speak to my experience with you, but I know you've
Well,
got many other
we have
experiences.
changed the culture from outcome oriented to service oriented.
Yeah.
And when you're service oriented, you're building relationship with anything you're doing. So if you have a product, you build it like a baby and you watch it grow, right?
Yep.
Right. You might want to add new clothes to it, finery it up as it grows, right?
Yeah.
That's normal. And you also start to weed out that one bad apple at the water cooler.
Right.
Because that's disauthentic to your message of service. And you start to recognize that when you breed relationship, not in a codependent, I need you to pay my bills, but I appreciate our relationship so much that I am happy to pay you. See, that's commerce to our understanding. It's acknowledgement of your inspired sharing that gives me a benefit because you have that wisdom and I have this wisdom.
Right.
That's true win-win alignment. That's the next wave of possibility. Imagine the inspiration that the unique child could bring that was fostered not in doctrine, but in potential. Well, that's fulfillment for a beautiful world, we think.
Yeah.
So, I love seeing Matthew's niece and nephew because they're nothing but light.
Right.
And you hear how we've already patterned ourselves, because I hear it in all that are around. And it's only when you get that clarity, Meg, that you can start to see the limitations that have been around you. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I hadn't seen it before, because I always say this, that I can have the greatest compassion. That's why these are biting me. I'm like, what is biting me? Jeez, I thought it was me. Anyways, so I think that when you uncover where you've been, you can only have compassion for those who are still walking in the dark. Yeah. So I always find that there are various beings who express their love for others, but then contemplate their lack as well. Yeah. I think you cannot contemplate another's lack and have your own wholeness also.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Yeah, these ants are eating me up, man. Hi, travel with me.
Yeah, move.
Back of our dirty car. This is better, huh?
Yes.
Oh, so much better. So just always do the podcast from the back of the car.
How does she look there?
Lori's traveling around because she can do that with her work, which is so awesome. Part of the freedom that we all desire.
Well, I find it very fascinating that the way life has unfolded for me, I would never have anticipated in my 2 cars, 2 houses, 2 kids kind of life that this would ever be it. And yet every day I wake up and I have no reason to be unhappy.
Yeah.
Absolutely no reason. I mean, does that mean my life hasn't changed and I haven't had to accept things that were very challenging, like my sister's transition and henceforth? Yeah, life will happen and you will have to learn to deal. And when you deal, you see it from the divine, eternal, abundant love perspective, not from the perspective of you're caught on the stage and can never get home.
Yeah.
When you know, Dorothy, that you're home and you're the only one listening to Oz, well, you're all set. Did I lose you?
I got you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. So let's give these guys, I talked a little bit about at the beginning ways in which you can work with people. And I want to just kind of break down each one just so there's some clarity here and how that would be. And so when we talked about being able to join our session, this Live with Lauri, get on, ask questions. It's on a private Zoom. It's not, live on Facebook, but there will be others here. And with that, Lauri, talk about that. So anyone can get on, ask you anything.
Yeah,
that's going on in their life.
So questions of any kind, which means if you can't, along my journey, I had so many days of fear and so many hours I wanted to call people like us to talk to them. And generally, when you call at that level, you're not going to get this level. You're going to get somebody who doesn't know, who's going to mirror all your stuff right back to you so you still don't know. And you're going to go to sleep spending all your money trying to talk to people who don't know. How do I know that? I believe I've done that. Poster child, that. Spend too much money on that. That's not good for you. And you're still not at a place where you know the answer. So we like to provide a service to the populace where if you really need a question because you can't catch a breath, please call us.
Yeah.
And that's not because we serve victims on this show. We don't. But what we will do is give you that answer and then direct you to some information that would give you a new place to start looking at yourself, such as the book Ask and It's Given. Always a good 101 primer from my point of view.
Yep.
Because that's energy 101. You're not who you think you are.
Yep.
Right?
And you can also, let's say you can't attend, you can also write in the email below.
And we love those questions. I just say that if you need a more immediate question answered, please know that doesn't happen that way immediately.
Yep. And
that's
then,
all I want to say about that part.
Yeah. So these are, this is a free event to attend, and it's limited in the respect that we'll only answer X amount of questions on a given show, depending on time. It's usually runs an hour. And then a really cool thing, if you feel like you want to just ask a question privately, there's a place you can check out on her website, which is also below in the comments here. And you can ask her, Lauri, a private question, and she will get back to you by text, video text, or text. Lauri, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we are offering for a certain period of time, sort of a pilot to see how we could support people, a space and time where if they want to reach out privately for a very nominal fee, they can get some qualification and information, Spirit says, and some of their questions answered that way. And then they also want to just add, for other people who are at different levels, maybe not that need or urgency, this outlet is going to be ongoing, and it's going to be an offer where it is available for the masses to have that access to all that is.
Yep.
That will be available to them. And there also be those beings like you, Meg, who are at that place who really just want to get on with their show.
Yeah.
Well, that might be another place where they do want to check my website for some more expanded interest, spirit
Yeah.
says.
So let's talk about that a little bit. And we don't have to go into kind of every idea, but the idea is like for instance, I signed up on a retainer every month and worked with Lauri a little over a year together. And so let's talk about that, and then I'll kind of talk about my experience with it. If
Oh
you want to kind
yeah.
of explain how
Well,
that
what I
works.
generally do with people who are interested in their own transcendence and their own awareness and their own knowing, where Meg, you had intuitive insight, but you didn't feel comfortable in claiming it as much, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So spirit knows what your real fulfillment and path would look like if you let that come in. So they'll present me in an offer of a one-on-one, right?
Yep.
And they'll see how we are in alignment through that communication. And then if it feels like a fit, then we offer mentoring, because that would lead you into a more extended remembrance of you on a more consistent basis. And that's why we've offered mentoring, because a one-on-one is great for clarity. And we generally do offer that if you would like to have I need a reference point to get back to know what 101 is. 101 is thought gets perception, perception gets response, response is emotion, emotion equals consciousness. This is consciousness. This is how you're applying it. This is what you can do to change it. It's very basic 101. This is you.
Yeah.
Everybody can get that in a 1 hour session, and they can have it like a tool in their pocket, and it will get you anywhere you want to go. If you use that 1 hour consistently, no matter what, it will take you anywhere.
Yeah.
However, really want to get a speed pass, Meg, I would say mentoring is a speed pass.
Mentoring for me was everything. And, you know, I would prepare, you know, my advice to anyone is prepare ahead of time for that meeting with Lauri, and, you know, really think about some things that are going on in your life and what you want further clarity on. For me, it could be anything from, you know, relationship stuff to anything going on in a career,
And Meg,
moving.
can I interrupt you for 1
Yeah.
second? Because Spirit wanted to say this. You will have those intentions because that's the clarity your mind is focused on. And generally, when you get to our call, we are telling you that before you've told us that. And then that's generally gone. And then we're on to something else that's moving you ahead of that. Do you agree?
Definitely, because the majority of, and that's where I was getting, the majority of what we ended up talking about was my journey to, you know, work with others in finding their own freedom, and really understanding that all of these gifts were here. They were all here, but Lauri really was able to help me, and still does, tap into them and be able to, um, to tap into spirit myself. So when I am faced with something, how to access that information very quickly and clarity.
And Meg, say this about those business potentials we spoke of.
Yeah.
Not every business owner is going to become an intuitive guide that does what we do. However,
No.
business owners who run their business from the seat of their pants, from their wisdom and knowing, don't need many degrees.
No.
So we inspired that awareness so that they run a tight ship that's run on the basis of cooperation and cohesiveness. And we give them insight for that kind of clarity so that they have it within themselves without having to go change their label.
Yeah. I also think it's really a really cool benefit is our human selves. And this is what I found myself happening, is that I got drawn into some things that are very, how would we put this, Lauri? Like last week, you know, I started going down these paths of things that were, I would say, very 3D, but there's another way to say that, probably just very,
What did you say? I missed the word.
I said 3D, but I was gonna.
Oh no, 3D is correct, because 5D is cohesive, 3D is disruptive.
So most of the time now I feel like I'm vibing up here, observing things, not attaching, but I found myself going down these wormholes last week.
I think you got it with wormhole. Thank you for saying that. Because a wormhole, imagine like you're this big mass of rich, dark earth. Well, if you got a wormhole, then the earth is disrupted, right?
Right.
So remember, if you're going in a wormhole, you're not that big, rich earth that could plant anything. You've made a wormhole, and they aerate the earth. And so they're not a disruptive wrongness. They have their purpose, but the purpose is to create space so you could fill it in with something else. Get it? Ha ha.
Right. Right. And that's what was happening, is instead of being present and having kind of this like a observation standpoint, which I've been doing. I feel like I haven't really been attaching to a lot of those ideas. I was attaching and I was digging and defending and doing all those things that I really had let go of. And I think that's also a beautiful thing because we're all human and we're going to go through those things. And this process.
You know what mentoring does, Meg, is it builds you, because what I have found in my practice in building relationship, because the way I run my practice is you and I are in a relationship. We are resonating energy aligned with love. We are source having an interpersonal perception of self, source, eternal life force together. Yeah. So together we are being co-creative in inspiration, clarity, truth, and receiving all at the same time. So our particular profession allows us this coherence. We'd like to inspire this coherence in all expressions, because when you said gifts earlier, it sparked me to say, everybody has a talent. Everybody has a unique offering to the world. I'm not going to be the dude that creates nuts and bolts, because I'm not.
Right.
I'm not the guy that remembers to put gas in the car. Matthew does that. You know, like he's on the detail, dude, because he thinks about that. And I never do.
Right.
So everybody has their talent and contribution. And if we'd stop qualifying one as greater than or lesser than through a piece of paper that means nothing, ultimately that will burn in a fire and be disappeared, people. Just saying. Oh, sorry. Well, I guess, and you can melt down coin, because I just went to coin in my head as a human. I thought, well, we'll still have coin by Jesus Spirit. And they're like, nope, because you can melt that shit down and make something else.
Still worth the same though.
Yeah. So I guess, Meg, we just showed what it is to work with us. We just showed you how we think about things.
Yeah.
And we bring funny to it, because we bring funny to most things, because we're kind of funny about the way we think about things, they say.
Yeah. And I also want to just talk to, you know, a lot of people on their healing journey. And, you know, where I started my healing journey long ago was with a therapist, which only served me so long, because
long, get it? Long storytelling, long story of whoa.
Yeah. And what I find is when you are ready to receive, when you're ready to kind of step into this type of clarity, you will be shown Lauri Ivers, because I believe that every time along our path, when something or someone comes into our life, it's because we're ready for it. And you might be watching this and not be ready for it, and not be ready to have some clarity on certain things in your life. Or you might be watching this and saying, yes, 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 I want this. And that's your answer right there. So,
and maybe I'd like to shine a little love on you, because I see you as you see me, and I really appreciate that. And what I wanted to say about your platform to all the inspired healers that you speak of, I'd like to reframe the word healing journey to be holding eternal abundant love in this now given moment to you.
Yeah.
So that's healing and wholeness. When you recognize the clarity of that contrast is the healing.
Yeah.
To go back to the origin of no thing is the beginning. Yes.
Yeah.
So if we could clear the closet and the clutter, then we'd already be here holding eternal radiant energy, and everybody's got that now. They're just forgetting it. So the clarity comes from the opportunity of new information seen in a different light, which means no contrast, only what could benefit me from this now moment.
Yeah. And what they're saying to me right now is they want me to just kind of bring up this idea of, you have a situation in your life, whether it's, you know, a marriage that came up first for some. I feel like a lot of people are going through that. Whereas like you keep saying,
practice in that.
Maybe this, well, I'm going to keep just trying harder. Maybe this isn't really done yet, or, you know, I'm going to keep at this. And
selling out, we call it.
I think this relationship has more in it. I'm just going to work harder at it. And when I know, I'll know. And it's like, I see a lot of people doing that in their life right now, with talking themselves into these things, like whether it's a relationship, a job, but deep down, you know, right? You know,
but they're talking themselves into dis-ease and discomfort.
Yes. Yes. And so if you are watching this, the reason I just brought that up, and you are finding yourself talking yourself over and over into certain careers that aren't resonating, or relationships, or the way you're parenting, or any of those things, then this is a great opportunity for you to kind of make some changes in your life. I promise you will just
Could I
be,
plant with you, Miss Meg? I think that there are many beings like me out there that are looking for you to interview them.
yeah,
Well, should they come across you, her name is Megan Bedford. Mine's Lauri Ivers. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
we would.
The
Because,
more like, the merrier, we say.
yeah, and right now I think, I don't think, I feel everybody is at the point where they're ready. They are ready to make some big changes. And we're here to help you out.
Yeah, it's time to really come out and say that you know what you know and be what you know.
Yeah.
Because it's going to allow everybody else to take off their costumes and be authentically what they came to be, which maybe wasn't to be a farmer. Maybe it was to be a daughter. Maybe it was to be a lawyer. Maybe it was to be a banker. But maybe if bankers and lawyers could see rules not from the justice of men, but from the opportunity of, we call it fairness, but fairness, even in that, is a qualification. When you love somebody, you would never be in jealousy or unkindness. So it's irrelevant in that realm of 5D coherence. Do you see why I can't even really go to lawyers and bankers in the same way?
Yeah.
Because they're really not that. They're really kind, wise souls who give guidance to offer opportunity for coherence. That is a judge.
Yeah. And there is so much freedom in taking off your costume.
Oh my goodness. Talk about a relief. It's like
Oh
your
my
fat
gosh.
jeans. Let your butt now.
Yep. Well, this has been fun, Lauri, and I just adore you. And I want to show the world Lauri Ivers. And thank you for joining me on this interview. Again, all the information is underneath on our YouTube channel under this video to access Lauri, Live with Lauri, on Wednesdays at 7 every week. You can write.
Yeah, and I think next week we'll answer the questions that will arrive. And we were speaking of maybe starting at a topic of focus, such as how does one create more abundance in their life?
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Yeah, because I think people are so uncertain about the potential of tomorrow that they're worrying away their now. So we'd like to take worry off the plate. So next week, perhaps you could hold questions towards us in the idea of how can I do what I like to do and make money doing it?
Love it.
Okay.
Sounds great.
I love you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Lauri. Thank you, Matthew. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Be
Bye,
well.
Megan.
Many blessings.
Bye.